everyone, it's Matt here and welcome to the December 2020 vlog or news update for the American modelling. So obviously 2020 has been a bit good and bad year for the hobbyist, depending on your stance and what the year's done to you. So 2020 and it's sort of like an end of year wrap almost, this episode will be. So obviously, as a starter, I'd like to say thanks and congratulations to the many individuals and groups that actually support our hobby. So obviously, our first one is obviously Rebrickable. Rebrickable pretty much produces, I'd have said, 90% of my fleet, especially for freight. Passengers, mostly custom stuff, or heavily inspired by others. But certainly, pretty much all of my rolling stock is Rebrickable except for a few pieces. And Rebrickable has actually had quite a good year in terms of releases. They've had their own 3 releases, which are the Gunderson Haiku boxcar, I think it is, the American Car and Foundry covered hopper, and the Pacific Fruit Express -9 rebuilt reefers. And I actually own 2 of those instruction sets, the covered hopper and the reefer. I've had 3 models released under Brickmania, or at least pre-ordered under Brickmania this year, which are the New York Central Mohawk, the New York Central Caboose, and the Boxcar, which I think is a USRA single sheath. I'm not entirely sure. I saw one look at the price and went eek, and that was it. And then obviously the biggest thing, and it's I think something our hobby has been sorely lacking, and they've finally grasped the nettle by the thorns, as it were, and those are the Rebrickable knuckle couplers, which were produced in association with Brickforge. They're nothing short of a revolution for our hobby. Obviously, we are now getting aftermarket replacement couplers of the old sort of swivel style 9-volt magnet from Studley trains, but in my opinion, if we can go towards a more scale knuckle coupler, then we should. It's definitely a move forward for us as hobbyists. Obviously, it's more as a if I was going to say, it's more towards a scale railroader sort of aspect to the hobby. You don't have to use the Rebrickable knuckle couplers, but as magnetic couplers are becoming more rare, why wouldn't you go to something like the Rebrickable knuckles, or KD knuckles as they effectively are? They're more realistic, they're less likely to detach mid-train. They are good. From what I've experienced of them, they're a really good general all-round product. Obviously, there is some. I think there's some room for additions and tweaks, and some of that is just down to what KD actually offers in terms of couplers, more than what Rebrickable do. But I'd really love a bit more, sort of like a couple of pocket options, and maybe the longer one, but with studs on top, possibly, because the 2x2 plate one is good, but sometimes you need a bit more reinforcement, and that would be quite good. Or possibly even go to 3 deep, but with some anti-studs. That'd be quite good as well to keep contained a bit better. Moving on, Rebrickable isn't the only one being busy. We've had Brick Tracks as well, and I think Brick Tracks this year has been quite hard hit in some respects. They've been working on their R104 turnout moulding and getting that ready for production, and they actually did say that I think they did intend to start shipping earlier this December. I think it was about sort of like the 4th, 5th, 6th sort of time frame for actual shipping of pre-orders for their R104 turnouts, and unfortunately that has come and gone without much fanfare, and effectively it's just been a case of it's been delayed because of COVID. We can't get the supplies in to actually make them, and it's just knock-on effects of COVID and supplier issues, and it's just something that's happened. You know, it's not a major impact. Yes, it's late, but it's not like there's any shows I can show them off to at the moment. So, you know, from my perspective, you know, I've got some Trick Bricks R104s. The Bricktrack injection molded ones are obviously going to be better than that, but, you know, I've got some Trick Bricks R104s to test with, and to be honest with you, I'm not even using those at the moment, because most of my stuff uses 9-volt tracks, so, you know, nobody's making any wide radius 9-volt turnouts, so it's not a major impact for me at the moment. And obviously Bricktracks have been producing their wheels as well. I'm not sure whether that was a 2019 or 2020 release. I think it was 2020. But, you know, that's been a great boon to the community. You know, they're widely available now, especially with the HA Bricks distributor in Europe. They're a lot more common. They're available in multiple colours, and they actually have a proper stud connection on the end, so they're really useful for those who are doing, say, roller bearings or more modern bearings compared to your standard Lego wheels. Obviously, you know, there's not been some supply issues with those as well, but, you know, from a community standpoint, the fact that we've now got a bespoke manufacturer of wheels is great. And if you're making roller bearing wheel sets now, literally the only piece you now need from Lego is the 1x2 Technic brick with the axle holes in, and that's it. So it's a great boost for the community having these producers on hand. And, you know, it's unfair to pick out the few without picking out some of the others as well. So, OK Brickworks has been doing a phenomenal job this year. Not only have they been supplying Brick Train Depot and Brick Colorado with supplies for their decals, I've also been doing custom orders. You know, I'm a reasonably frequent customer, and I must say, you know, despite all these restrictions, you know, despite COVID and XYZ, you know, service has been as excellent as ever. And, you know, it's something I'd like to say that even though it has been a pandemic, even though we've had multiple issues this year from various things, it's great that, you know, these manufacturers and suppliers are still able to plod on and keep us amused, even if we're stuck in homes, for example. You know, so manufacturers and intros out the way, it's time to have a look at progress on models. So obviously the big thing this year has been pushing to complete the Brick Colorado reefers and covered hoppers. So I've been producing 5 reefers overall and 4 covered hoppers. 3 of the reefers people knew about already because I maintain a reasonably accurate stock list on my Facebook page, which lists what status everything is in. But I have had some tweaks and changes to that. So for the reefers, there's actually 2 in the yellow and reddish brown paint scheme. And then there was 1 in the Bangor and the Rooster main potatoes livery, which is a bit of a, you know, as Glenn and Cal know, I'm a bit picky when it comes to producing certain details. And to give you a bit of a backstory, the Bangor and the Rooster potatoes boxcar, or reefer I should say, is actually a ex-MDT reefer, not an ex-PFE reefer. Externally, I don't think there's actually too much in terms of detail that you'd actually pick out unless you're a really picky modeler. But the big thing for me is the doors, and I have one. It's pretty much built. It's off camera over to my right hand side, or your left, as it would be. But I need to tweak the doors on it, and I need to do a few other bits through it, and I don't think you can actually get some of the handrails in dark blue, because the pictures I've seen, you know, it's been XYZ, you know, were the handrails black or were they body colour? Was it this or was it that? You know, was it a white roof or a, you know, a dark reddish brown roof, as the ends are? You know, and there's been all these different questions, and it's actually led me to join the Bangor and the Rooster Facebook group just to get, you know, get some answers and sort of go, well, I've got this model, and it's according to these photos, it should be XYZ. Models indicate XYZ. You know, what is the real thing? And, you know, it turns out that actually white and brown are both accurate, depending on your time era, but the handrail, the sort of grabs were body colour primarily. So, you know, it's just a bit of a change around from that perspective. And the other two reefers are actually Pacific Fruit Express reefers. Now, I originally wasn't going to do any Pacific Fruit Express reefers. I was going to do the two yellow reddish brown ones and the Banger and Roofstock one, and then call it quits at those three. But then I've actually started looking at railroad photos and looking at the XYZ, and even looking at photos for the Banger and the Roofstock main potatoes reefer, and discovering that actually the Pacific Fruit Express reefers were reasonably common, you know, even in the northeast. So obviously that was a bit of a shortcoming on my hand. So obviously I've produced those, and again they're off camera, just sort of round pointing, not on this shelf. You can actually see in shots, it's actually just the shelf above, and they're pretty much complete in terms of body. They do need some underframe work doing, and also the bogies need to work and so forth. But again, most of these cars are in a general state of completedness. I'd probably say the yellow and reddish brown ones are probably the most complete. And in actual fact, here is a pretty much complete car. You'll have to excuse the headphone cable. But yeah, this is a complete car, except for decals. So it's got all the details on it. It's got your fancy new brick mill road and knuckles on here. So it's a great looking car. And literally it's just the decals. And once it's got the decals on, it's a complete model. So yeah, you know, that's one model complete, and the others will hopefully complete reasonably soonish. Because again, once they're complete, once they've got decals on, tick box, next model set to do. Covered hoppers, again, and it's probably been covered in other blogs. I'll be doing 4. The last one that actually needs any building work doing to it is the nickel plate black one. That's actually, I can't remember where that is actually in here. I think it's on this shelf, not entirely too sure. That is body complete except for the roof, or the top as it were. That's the only last bit outstanding, because I sort of built most of it and just went, I need some supplies, and I've ordered the supplies and then not bothered around to actually building it. So I do have the parts. It's just finding time to actually finish it off and make sure I've got everything there. But the other ones are done. So that's the Sioux line, dark red with white lettering. The LNUR lug car, so that's a Lego U-Group or Lego Train Loop livered car for Lego Northern UK Rail, which is my UK lug for trains. And then you've got the white southern one. And I will actually flash up a picture of the LNUR one on screen, hopefully, if I remember to actually edit it in. And that's effectively been it for additions to the fleet this year. The only other one is one I have over here, and it's not complete, so I'll just show off. I'll hide the worst part. So this is a new car. You can't actually make out some of the details properly, but if I hold this better, this is a modified Brick Roader USRA hopper, 55-ton hopper. Now you might be wondering, why have I done that? Well, this is actually a legitimate model. It's actually a one of their subsidiary companies actually started modifying some of their hoppers into bulk cement hoppers, and the main differences were the roof to protect the load and the unloading access. And there's been a few differences between that and the stock Brick Roader model in terms of the brake rigging and brake equipment. So those are again reflected on the model I'm doing. But but that one's missing the end slope, it's missing a few of the bits and details, and it's also missing the end shoots as well, because they're obviously different to what the Brick Model Railroader instructions are. So when it's done, which hopefully should be reasonably soon, or at least blocking out should be done reasonably soon, then obviously that can then be showing off. I don't think I have the cheese slopes required for some of the detailing, so that might have to be on the back burner for a bit until I get an orders in 2021. And obviously, I think that sort of rounds it off for progress on Brick Model Railroader models. The exciting aspect is actually a brand new model which has not been seen yet on my social media. Kale and Glenn for Brick Model Railroader are aware of it, and if you're on the Brook Train Depot Discord, you will have seen a render of it at least, but here it is, my New Haven HH1000 switcher. This is not 100% my own work, you know, I will add that disclaimer from the get-go. This is actually modified from some instructions that you can actually, or at least a LXF, I think it is, or studio file, that you can actually get on Rebrickable from Nonsense Wars Productions. So he's actually did a Union Pacific HH1000. So this is a backdated HH600 version for the New Haven Railroad. This is a HH600, not a HH660, because the HH600 is an earlier model. The details on it are a bit more picky than, you know, what you'd think. Primarily it's to do with this step here. That's different on the HH600, and then there's some other headlight and cluster changes as well. It's not 100% accurate. I will point that out. There's a fair few things that are wrong on it. This bit here at the front should be dark green. I've modified it from the original instructions to accommodate the change in the handrail, so it actually slopes upwards. I've changed the battery box as well, so this actually has a power functions rechargeable battery box on the underside. So I've had to very deftly mount that underside using 1x1 round studs with the hole, and the 1x1 round tile with the 3mm bar attachment. So you use those, you can actually mount it invertedly, and I've got access to the charging point at the bottom, and then the on-off switch like so. Other changes with it are more or less just a recolour into the New Haven orange and green. There's been a few changes with the bodywork, like the grill area. That's just 3 studs, 1 instead of 4. And there's other details with the roof furniture, including these dark green 2x4 tiles and some of the other things. Primarily, a lot of the changes and problems with this car are because parts aren't available in dark green. And you know, the biggest issue with that is, you know, I can get away with these 1x1s in dark bluish grey. That's not too much of an issue for me. The biggest issue for me really is the cab. And the cab's actually got two main things that need changing. You've got these headlight bricks here in black, which really should be dark green, and obviously the bits on the side of the cab here. So you got two door rails each side, and they should be dark green as well. It's just an unfortunate issue that you can't actually get those in dark green. So I'll have to resort to painting those at some point. So let's put that there. And the other major difference with the HH600 is the rear steps and beer monocle couple are actually body mounted instead of truck mounted, so it's actually a bit more realistic from that perspective. I'd love to have done the front, but unfortunately there's not enough clearance on the front bogie to actually accommodate that, unfortunately. So, other news that happened in 2020. The Camelback actually had some work done to it, and now he's in a pretty much complete state. There is some final tweaks to do in terms of detailing, primarily around the cab backhead for the fireman. That's the biggest issue because that's rather plain at the moment. That does need some work doing to it, and I'd ideally like to fit lights, but I'm not sure whether that's actually capable of being done at the moment. Again, it's something where it's powered and it works. Lights are an optional extra, and I'd sooner get other stuff finished and then I can go back and sort of, if you like, tart some older models up to a more modern and more A-folly sort of standard with lights and that sort of stuff. In terms of American models, I don't really think there's a lot else to talk about in terms of custom or new stuff. Again, I'm plowing on with the coach project, so building coaches. So I've actually got the 2 dark red ones on the shelf behind me, so you can see those. They actually do have knuckle couplers for their centre bogies. So these centre bogies in the middle are actually knuckle coupler equipped with Rebrickable HH1000. I think it's the centre shank, not the under shank. But again, that brings it rather tight, so I need to make sure that's actually going to work in real life, because they're a stud. They could do with having a stud gap between them, and that was actually doable with the old style magnets, but I need to make sure that's actually doable with the VMR knuckles. And there's actually supposed to be a third one of those. Those two actually don't have an interior yet. They do need one. If you can actually see seats in them, that's actually just the wall behind. You can actually see through the other side set of windows. I do have the side for the one passenger car here, so I've actually got the side done. Again, it's not complete, but it is here, you know, so I have pretty much got one side ready to go. In terms of the other dark green coach, because I actually have 2 sets of coaches, one in dark green, one in dark red. This is actually the sides for the dark green one. This is actually in the Reading 2-tone scheme for the Reading Rambler coaches. So I've actually borrowed this sort of scheme from Rebrickable HH1000 because I wasn't aware of it. But it does look quite nice. So I'm going to do one car, passenger car in this sort of scheme, just to show it off. And then I'll probably modify it back into the standard, just all over dark green at some point as well. And I think that's pretty much it for new additions and tweaks to the current fleet. A lot of the other stuff that's been happening is more UK based, which I'll go over in the UK version. So yeah, that's it for the 2020 sort of like US sort of side of the updates. So stay tuned for the UK and the general status update vlog coming later up. So that's it for now, and see you later.